Driverly.com, unlimited drama series.
How does a man stay calm when his own family laughs as he's told he isn't welcome anymore? Why did Christmas still happen after that, but without the money everyone depended on? This is how I stopped paying quietly and let the consequences speak instead. The dining room felt warm that December evening, filled with the scent of Alara's roast chicken and the sound of my 7-year-old granddaughter Mara chattering about her latest baking project. I'd driven over for what had become our monthly family dinner, though family felt like an increasingly loose term these days. Grandpa Damon, Mara bounced toward me with a plate of misshapen fortune cookies. I made these myself. Mom helped with the oven part, but I wrote all the fortunes. I smiled and ruffled her dark hair. At least someone in this house still seemed genuinely happy to see me. Alara, my 32-year-old daughter, offered a distracted wave from the kitchen, while her husband Rowan remained glued to his phone at the head of the table. "Pick one, Grandpa. Pick the best one." The cookies were charmingly imperfect, some burnt at the edges, others barely holding their folded shape. I selected one from the middle of the plate and cracked it open carefully, not wanting to hurt Mara's feelings if the cookie crumbled. The slip of paper inside was written in purple crayon. "You're not welcome at Christmas." The room went silent. I read it again, certain I'd misunderstood. But no, the words were clear, written in Mara's careful 7-year-old handwriting. "What does it say, Dad?" Alara called from the kitchen, her voice carrying that edge it always had when she was trying to sound casual about something that wasn't. I held up the slip. "It says I'm not welcome at Christmas." The silence stretched for another heartbeat. Then Rowan burst into laughter, loud, sharp, and entirely too pleased with himself. "Oh man, that's perfect. Mara, you little comedian." Alara emerged from the kitchen, drying her hands on a dish towel. She glanced at the slip, then at me, then quickly away. "Mara, honey, what other fortunes did you write?" But Rowan was still chuckling. "You have to admit, Damon, that's pretty funny. Not welcome at Christmas. Like she knows you're the Grinch or something?" I folded the slip of paper carefully and placed it in my wallet. "Very creative, Mara." My granddaughter looked confused. Did I spell something wrong? Daddy helped me with that one. The room went quiet again, but this time, the silence had weight. Rowan's laughter died abruptly. Alara suddenly became very interested in adjusting the silverware. "No, sweetheart," I said gently. "Your spelling is perfect." I stayed for dinner. We talked about Mara's school play and Rowan's business and the weather. Normal things, safe things. No one mentioned the fortune cookie again, and no one apologized for it either. When I left that night, I carried the folded slip in my wallet like evidence of something I was only beginning to understand. Driving home, I found myself thinking about how we'd gotten here. When had I become the family joke? When had my presence become something to laugh about rather than welcome? The pattern had been building for years, so gradually I'd barely noticed. It started after my divorce from Iris 5 years ago. Alara had been sympathetic then, inviting me for dinners, asking how I was doing. But somewhere along the way, those invitations had become expectations. Not of my company, but of my wallet. The restaurant bills I quietly picked up. The emergency car repairs that somehow always happened when Rowan was short on cash. The down payment on their house that I'd provided without being asked to co-sign the mortgage. The monthly transfers to Rowan's struggling consulting business that kept his doors open. I'd told myself it was helping family, being a good father and grandfather. But when was the last time anyone had asked how I was doing? When had they last invited me somewhere that didn't involve me paying for it? My phone buzzed with a text from Alara. "Thanks for dinner tonight, Dad. BTW. Can you Venmo me for Mara's dance classes? The payment is due tomorrow." Not, "Can you help with dance classes?" or "Would you mind covering this month?" Just the assumption that I would, and the instruction on how to send the money. I opened our family group chat and scrolled back through months of messages. The pattern was stark once I saw it clearly. "Dad, can you transfer $800 for the car insurance?" "Damon, Rowan's biggest client is late on payment again. Can you cover payroll this week? Emergency dentist visit for Mara." Sending you the bill. Christmas planning meeting, Sunday at 2. We'll send you the invoice after we figure out the menu. Invoice, not invitation. I wasn't expected to attend the planning meeting, just to pay for whatever they decided. I scrolled further back, looking for the last time anyone had simply asked if I wanted to join them for something. A movie, coffee, a walk in the park. Something that cost nothing but time and genuine interest in my company. I couldn't find one. The realization hit me like cold water. I had become a utility, a financial resource to be managed, not a person to be valued. And the worst part? I had trained them to see me this way by never setting boundaries, never saying no, never requiring that respect accompany their requests. The fortune cookie wasn't a child's random cruelty, it was the truth, spoken by the only family member still innocent enough to say it out loud. I wasn't welcome at Christmas, not as a person anyway. My money was welcome. My presence was tolerated as long as it came with my checkbook. That night, I sat in my home office and opened a spreadsheet. I listed every recurring payment, every emergency transfer, every bill I'd covered in the past year. The numbers were staggering. I was essentially supporting 2 households and keeping Rowan's business afloat, all while being treated like an inconvenience. I created a folder on my desktop and labeled it December. Inside, I scanned the fortune cookie slip and saved it as the first document. Then, I began to plan. The next morning, I called my accountant, Caleb North. We'd worked together for over a decade, and he knew my finances better than anyone. Caleb, I need you to prepare a complete analysis of all my outgoing payments to family members. Everything. Direct transfers, bill payments, business investments. I want to see the full picture. Is everything all right, Damon? Everything's about to be very clear. How soon can you have that ready? Give me 2 days. While I waited for Caleb's analysis, I did some investigating of my own. Rowan's business, North Peak Consulting, had been struggling for 3 years. I knew this because I'd been quietly covering his shortfalls, but I'd never looked at the bigger picture. A few discreet inquiries revealed that, without my monthly infusions, the business would have closed 18 months ago. Rowan's temporary cash flow issues were actually structural insolvency masked by my money. I also discovered something interesting. Despite all my financial support, I had no legal stake in the business. No ownership, no voting rights, no claim to assets. I was a creditor with no contract, an investor with no equity. Legally, I could stop the payments tomorrow and have no obligations whatsoever. Caleb's report arrived on Wednesday, and the numbers were even worse than I'd calculated. In the past year alone, I'd transferred $47,000 to Alara and Rowan. This included monthly business loans to North Peak Consulting, $18,000, household expenses, mortgage help, utilities, car payments, $12,000, emergency expenses, $8,000, holiday and birthday expenses, $4,500, miscellaneous requests, $4,500, nearly $50,000, and I couldn't remember receiving a single thank you note. The payments had become so routine that gratitude had evaporated entirely. Caleb, I said during our meeting, if I stopped all these optional payments immediately, what would be my legal exposure? None. You're not contractually obligated to continue any of this support. The business loans aren't formal loans. They're gifts, technically. You could stop everything tomorrow. And if I wanted to phase them out over a specific timeline, that's entirely your decision. You could stop immediately, gradually reduce them, or set an end date. Completely up to you. I thought about the fortune cookie slip in my wallet. About Christmas planning meetings I wasn't invited to but was expected to fund, about laughter at my expense and the assumption that I'd keep paying regardless of how I was treated. Caleb, I want all optional family payments to end on December 15th. Set up the timeline so that any automatic transfers stop then. Don't reduce them gradually. Just stop them. And prepare documentation showing that these were gifts, not loans, so there's no confusion later. Are you sure about this timeline right before Christmas? I'm absolutely sure. They've made it clear I'm not welcome at Christmas anyway. I'm just making sure they can plan accordingly. Next, I visited my attorney, Lena Brooke. I wanted to ensure that my financial disengagement was completely legal and that I was protected if anyone tried to claim I owed them continued support. Lena, I need to understand my legal obligations to my adult daughter and her family. I've been providing substantial financial support, and I want to stop. What's my exposure? Lena reviewed the documentation Caleb had prepared. You have no legal obligation to support your adult daughter or her family. The business support you've provided appears to be gifts, not loans, based on the lack of formal agreements. You can stop any time. What if they claim I promised ongoing support? Without written agreements, that would be very difficult to prove. And even if you had made verbal promises, you can't be forced to continue indefinite financial support. You're not a business partner, just a benefactor. Benefactors can stop giving. Good. I want this done cleanly, with no room for legal challenges later. I'll prepare a memo documenting the gift nature of your previous support and confirming your right to discontinue it. Just to be thorough. I left Lena's office feeling lighter than I had in months. For the first time in years, I was taking control instead of simply reacting to demands. That evening, I updated my December folder with Caleb's analysis and Lena's memo. Then, I opened my banking app and began canceling automatic transfers. Each cancellation felt like removing a weight I'd been carrying for so long, I'd forgotten what it felt like to stand up straight. The last thing I did was set a calendar reminder for December 15th. Final transfers end. New chapter begins. The beauty of stopping financial support is that it happens in silence. No dramatic confrontations, no angry phone calls, just the quiet absence of money that was never truly appreciated anyway. I watched the family group chat over the next week with detached fascination. The Christmas planning continued with elaborate enthusiasm. Found the perfect venue. It's $1,200, but totally worth it. Catering estimate came back at $800 for the menu we want. Mara's dress for Christmas photos is $150. So cute. Wine and decorations will probably run another $400. Dad, we'll send you the total bill once everything is finalized. Should be around $2,500. Not a request, not a question. Just an assumption that I would pay, paired with casual dismissal of my actual presence at the event they were planning with my money. Meanwhile, the automatic transfers I'd canceled began to create ripples. Rowan's business account, accustomed to my monthly $1,500 injection, went into overdraft when payroll hit. He covered it from personal funds, probably assuming my transfer was just delayed. Elara's mortgage payment, which I'd been supplementing by $800 monthly, went through on her account alone for the first time in 2 years. She texted me, "Dad, I think there was a problem with this month's transfer. Can you double check?" I responded, "I'll look into it." I wasn't lying. I was looking into it. I was looking into how it felt to not send money automatically, and it felt excellent. The most interesting development was at North Peak Consulting. Without my regular infusions, Rowan had to actually manage cash flow. A major client payment that was 2 weeks late suddenly became a crisis instead of a minor inconvenience. He started chasing receivables with urgency I'd never seen before. He also made a mistake that revealed how precarious things really were. He gave Christmas bonuses to his 3 employees, based on the assumption that my December payment would arrive as usual. When it didn't, he had to cover $4,500 in bonuses from an account that couldn't spare it. I knew this because one of his employees, Marcus, happened to be the son of my neighbor. Small world. Marcus mentioned over the fence that work had been weird lately. Bonuses followed immediately by warnings about temporary cash flow challenges. "Mr. Vosel," Marcus said, "is Mr. Hale's business doing okay? He seems really stressed about money lately." "Business can be unpredictable," I replied. I'm sure he'll figure it out. By December 10th, the pressure was building. Rowan's business credit line was maxed out. Alara was juggling household expenses without her usual backup, and the Christmas planning had reached the point where deposits were due. That's when I received the text that confirmed everything I'd suspected about my role in this family. Dad, we need the Christmas payment ASAP. Venue wants their deposit tomorrow and catering needs confirmation. Can you Venmo $1,500 by tonight and we'll settle the rest later? Not, would you like to contribute to Christmas? Not, can you help us with the celebration? Just a demand for immediate payment, with the assumption that I would comply without question. I responded, I'll get back to you on that. The next morning, I received a more urgent message. Dad, seriously need that payment today. Already told everyone Christmas is confirmed. I realized they had planned an
Don't leave. Let me explain.
Explain a shade I don't own.
Watch more on Grammarly.com.
entire Christmas celebration, invited guests, booked venues, ordered food, without actually confirming they could pay for it. They had simply assumed my money would be available when needed, like a credit card, with no limit and no monthly statements. The assumption was so complete, so unquestioned, that they hadn't even considered the possibility that I might not pay. They had built their holiday plans on the foundation of my wallet without ever asking if I wanted to be part of the actual celebration. On December 12th, 3 days before my self-imposed deadline, I received a call from Alara. Her voice was strained in a way I hadn't heard since she was a teenager, asking for help with a problem she'd created. Dad, we really need to talk about Christmas funding. Things are getting complicated. What kind of complications? Well, the venue is threatening to cancel if we don't pay the deposit by tomorrow. And Rowan's business account is tied up with some client payment delays. We just need you to cover things temporarily, like always. Like always. There it was. The assumption that had become so embedded in our relationship that she stated it as simple fact. I would pay, like always, because that's what I was for. I'll think about it, I said. Dad, there's no time to think about it. We need the money tomorrow. Then you should probably figure out where you're going to get it. The silence on the other end of the line was profound. I don't think it had ever occurred to her that I might not provide whatever money was needed, whenever it was needed. What do you mean? She asked finally. I mean exactly what I said. You need money tomorrow, so you should figure out where you're going to get it. But you always... I know what I always do, Alara. The question is what you're going to do. I hung up gently without anger or drama. Just a simple end to a conversation that had revealed everything I needed to know about how this family saw me. 2 days later, December 15th arrived. My calendar reminder popped up. Final transfers end. New chapter begins. I opened my banking app and confirmed that all automatic payments to Alara and Rowan had stopped. No more mortgage help. No more business bailouts. No more emergency transfers. It was done. The next few days unfolded with the inevitable logic of gravity. When you remove the foundation, the structure falls. Not dramatically, but steadily, predictably, completely. Rowan's business was the first domino. Without my December payment, he couldn't make payroll on the 18th. He had to take a cash advance on his personal credit cards to pay his employees, a move that pushed his household finances past the breaking point. The Christmas venue called on December 19th to confirm final payment. Alara stalled for 2 days, hoping I would relent and provide the money as I always had. When I didn't, she had to cancel the booking. The deposit was forfeit, $400 they couldn't afford to lose. The catering company was more flexible, allowing her to downgrade from the elaborate spread they'd planned to a basic package that cost half as much. But even that reduced amount strained their resources. I learned these details, not from family communications, those had stopped entirely after my conversation with Alara, but from the peripheral evidence that accumulates when people's financial lives implode. Marcus mentioned that his boss seemed really stressed and had started talking about restructuring the business after the holidays. Translation: Rowan was preparing to lay people off. My neighbor mentioned seeing Alara at the grocery store, using coupons and buying generic brands. She seemed embarrassed when she saw me, he said, like She was doing something wrong by trying to save money. The family group chat, which I was still part of despite being excluded from actual planning, became a fascinating study in crisis management. Change of plans for Christmas venue. We're doing it at home instead, more intimate. New catering plan, potluck style, everyone brings something. Simplified gift exchange this year, $20 limit per person. Each message was a small admission of financial reality, dressed up as a positive choice. They were learning to live within their actual means for the first time in years, and they were discovering that their actual means were much smaller than they'd thought. The most telling message came on December 22nd. Christmas celebration moved to December 26th due to scheduling conflicts. There were no scheduling conflicts. There was simply no money to pay for Christmas on Christmas. So they were hoping for a post-holiday miracle. Perhaps they thought I would relent after seeing them struggle. Perhaps they believed that family loyalty would eventually overcome my apparent stubbornness. They didn't understand that this wasn't about punishment or leverage. It was about clarity. I was finally allowing our relationship to be based on what it actually was, rather than what I had been pretending it could be. On December 23rd, Rowan's business officially closed for the holidays, permanently, though he hadn't announced that yet. Marcus got a text saying the company was taking an extended break to reassess market conditions. Everyone understood this meant they should look for new jobs. That same day, I received my first communication from the family in over a week. It was a text from Alara. "Dad, we need to talk." "This has gone far enough," I responded. "I'm available to talk anytime. Can you come over tonight?" "Of course." I drove to their house that evening, passing the Christmas decorations that looked somehow desperate now, too bright, too elaborate for a family that had just lost its financial foundation. The lights seemed to be trying to maintain an illusion that was no longer sustainable. Ilara answered the door with the expression of someone who had been forced to confront reality for the first time in years. Rowan sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by bills and bank statements, looking like a man trying to solve a puzzle with half the pieces missing. "Dad," Ilara began, "I don't understand what's happening. Why did you stop helping us?" "I didn't stop helping you," I said calmly. "I stopped paying for things you never asked me to pay for. But you always— I know what I always did. The question is, did you ever want me to do it, or did you just want me to pay for it?" Rowan looked up from his papers. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I haven't been invited to Christmas in 3 years, but I've paid for it every time. It means you plan family events without including me, then send me the bill. It means my granddaughter writes fortune cookies telling me I'm not welcome, and everyone laughs." "That was just a joke," Alara said weakly. "Was it?" Because from where I'm sitting, it looked like the truth finally spoken out loud. I pulled the folded slip from my wallet and placed it on the table. This is what made me realize something important. You don't want me at Christmas. You want my money at Christmas. And once I understood that, everything became very simple. Rowan's face was flushed. "So you're punishing us? Destroying our Christmas because of a stupid fortune cookie?" "I'm not punishing anyone, Rowan. I'm just not paying for things anymore. If that destroys your Christmas, then your Christmas was never really yours to begin with." The room fell silent. I could see them both struggling with concepts they'd never had to consider. The difference between help and dependency, between family support and financial exploitation, between gratitude and entitlement. "What do you want from us?" Ilara asked finally. "I don't want anything from you," I said. "That's the point. For the first time in years, I'm not asking you for anything, and I'm not giving you anything you didn't ask for. We can finally see what our relationship actually is, instead of what my money was making it appear to be." I stood to leave. "If you want to build something real between us, I'm interested. But it has to be based on what we actually offer each other, not on what I can afford to give you." I left the fortune cookie slip on their table, evidence of the moment when the truth had finally been spoken, and I had finally been ready to hear it. Christmas came and went without me, which was exactly what the fortune cookie had predicted. I spent the day reading, taking a long walk, and having dinner with my ex-wife Iris, who had maintained a respectful friendship with me after our divorce. "How are you feeling about all this?" she asked over coffee. "Relieved," I said, and realized it was completely true. For the first time in years, I know exactly where I stand with them. There's clarity in that, even if it's not the clarity I would have preferred. Do you think they'll come around? I think they'll adapt. People are remarkably good at adjusting to new realities when they have to. I was right. Over the next week, I watched from a distance as Alara and Rowan began the process of rebuilding their lives within their actual means. Rowan started looking for employment rather than trying to save his failed business. Ilara began budgeting with the precision of someone who could no longer count on external rescue. They had a small Christmas celebration on December 26th, funded entirely by themselves. I know this because Mara called me on December 27th. Grandpa Damon, we had Christmas yesterday. It was different, but it was nice. Mom made cookies and Dad played guitar and we watched movies. That sounds wonderful, sweetheart. Mom seemed sad, though. She kept looking at her phone like she was waiting for someone to call. Sometimes adults have to figure out new ways to do things. It can be sad at first, but then it gets better. Are you going to come to our next Christmas? I don't know, Mara. Do you want me to come? Yes, but not just to pay for stuff. I want you to come because you're my grandpa. Out of the mouths of babes. My 7-year-old granddaughter understood the distinction that had taken me years to recognize. On January 3rd, I received a call from Alara. Her voice was different, quieter, more thoughtful, less demanding. Dad, I've been thinking about what you said, about the difference between wanting you there and wanting your money there. And? I think I understand now. I think we stopped seeing you as a person and started seeing you as a resource. And I'm sorry about that. Thank you for saying that. The thing is, I don't know how to fix it. I don't know how to have a relationship with you that isn't based on money because that's all it's been for so long. We could start small, I suggested. Coffee sometime, just to talk. About what? About whatever you want to talk about. Your work, Mara's school, books you've read, places you'd like to travel. Things that don't cost money. That sounds nice, she said, and for the first time in years, she sounded like she meant it. We met for coffee the following Saturday. It was awkward at first. We'd forgotten how to talk to each other without the underlying current of financial need and obligation. But gradually, we found our way to safer ground. She told me about her job, her worries about Mara, her thoughts about going back to school. I told her about the book I was reading, my plans to travel, my reflections on what I wanted the next phase of my life to look like. It wasn't the relationship we used to have, and it wasn't the relationship I had once hoped we might build. But it was honest. It was based on choice rather than need, on interest rather than obligation. Dad, she said as we were leaving, I want you to know that we're going to be okay. Financially, I mean. Rowan got a job offer, and I'm picking up extra hours. We won't need your help anymore. I'm glad to hear that. But I hope we can still see each other sometimes. Not because we need anything, but just because. I'd like that very much. 3 months later, I received an invitation to Mara's 8th birthday party. Not a bill for the party, an actual invitation, asking if I would like to attend. The party was small, held in their backyard, with homemade cake and simple decorations. I brought a gift I had chosen myself, not a check to cover expenses I hadn't been consulted about. During the party, Mara pulled me aside. Grandpa, I'm sorry about that fortune cookie. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. You didn't hurt my feelings, sweetheart. You told me the truth, and sometimes the truth is exactly what people need to hear. But you are welcome now, right? Like, really welcome? I looked around at the modest celebration, at Alara and Rowan managing everything themselves, at the genuine smiles instead of forced gratitude, at the absence of any expectation that I would pay for or fix or supplement anything. Yes, I said. I think I really am welcome now. As I drove home that evening, I thought about the folded slip of paper that had started this entire transformation. You're not welcome at Christmas. 7 words that had forced me to confront a relationship built on financial dependency rather than genuine affection. The fortune cookie had been right, of course. I hadn't been welcome at Christmas, not as myself anyway. My money had been welcome. My checkbook had been invited. But me? The person behind the payments? I had been tolerated, managed, leveraged, but not truly welcomed. Now, finally, I was learning what it felt like to be wanted for who I was, rather than what I could provide. It had cost me nearly $50,000 a year and the illusion of a close family relationship. But in return, I had gained something more valuable: the knowledge that any relationship I built going forward would be based on genuine mutual interest, rather than financial need. The fortune cookie had delivered exactly what it promised: a fortune. Not the kind measured in dollars, but the kind measured in clarity, self-respect, and the possibility of authentic connection. Sometimes, the best gifts come in the most unexpected packages. Sometimes the truth that hurts the most is the truth that sets you free. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do for people is to stop enabling them to take you for granted. I kept that fortune cookie slip in my wallet for months afterward, not as a reminder of hurt feelings, but as a reminder of the moment I finally chose to value myself as much as I had been valuing others. It was a small piece of paper that had changed everything, not by telling me something I didn't know, but by finally giving me permission to act on something I had known all along. The bill had come due, and for once, I hadn't been the one expected to pay it.